I'm from Southern California, and we're blessed for many years now with having a number of women who are serving on the city councils and mayors. They went through a period where they always said, oh, women wouldn't know how to do the fundraising part. That would be the thing that stops people. How do you deal with that in states such as Vermont?
Well, I'm originally from Los Angeles, so given that they have to raise probably over $1 million to run for the city council for at least Los Angeles and for the smaller areas, at least $100,000. Having to raise $10,000 for my campaign wasn't quite as big of a deal. I joked with some folks from back home if they could imagine. I spoke at all the old schools I went to, and our districts, we have some double-seated districts, so I represent about 8,000 to 10,000 people, but each representative is supposed to represent 4,000. The representatives in California represent 400,000, so 100 times more. The senators there represent more people than exist in the state of Vermont. So it's on a very different scale, and I had trouble with it. I hear many people have trouble with it, but I heard from other women that women tend to have even more trouble calling someone and asking them for $100, for however much money to, and more for the fact that it's for you and not for a particular cause. My mother does fundraising for UCLA and for California Lutheran University, and asking for money for scholarships is something a little bit different. But calling people or just telling other students, hey, a couple bucks would be great, was really difficult at first, but I was really encouraged by how many people started giving. I had a sophomore student come up and say, here's $100, this represents a day's worth of my pay, and I think it's worth it to give it to you because you're our voice. So once some of those preliminary fundraising checks came in from people my own age, I started to feel really encouraged. It was easier to tell others, here's what someone else did for me because they believe in me and what I'm bringing to the table, and anything you could give would help support what they've done and what we can do together and build this movement.
Hopefully it'll get easier now.
Right.
Well, yeah.
It gets harder as you go on, actually. It gets harder because you have to ask for bigger amounts of money.
Yeah.
And the ask is still quite difficult, I admit. But if they think you're going to win, if you have a chance of winning, you raise money. It's not so much gender. The only gender part is you have different networks. And some of the traditional business networks you have to convince. But I raised a lot of money from women, just like you did from students. And some of the big givers play it safe. They give to both sides. But I do think we have to move to campaign finance reform. I do think the system is terrible. My husband John is on the board of Americans for Campaign Reform, and I'm on the advisory committee for Congress people. They spend 1/3 of their time raising money. I mean, it's just outrageous. It's not only that those people have more access to them and can influence the process, as we're seeing in healthcare right now, but it's also, they're not doing what they should be doing. They're not spending their time developing legislation and compromising. Well, we'll stop at this point. Do you have any final comment?
Just how wonderful it is to sit next to you always.
Wow.
You're such an inspiration.
It's great to sit next to you. So this is a mutual admiration society, but no, I really mean it. It's wonderful that Kesha has picked up the baton and is going full speed ahead. And incidentally, any of you are interested, she's quoted in my book. The bookstore has kindly come up and has some copies of my book. If any of you are interested, I'll be happy to sign it. So thank you so much for coming.